going on, guys? Today we're going over what I'm calling the Oh My Got Becky look at her bottled lightning. But we're just going to call it Lightning Witch for short, I guess. I'm a longtime Destiny and Diablo player, and my favorite builds have always been the lightning base builds, whether it's Stormcaller in Destiny or Chain Lightning Sorcerer in Diablo. I wanted to replicate that, bring that into Borderlands, and what you see here is the end result of that work. Now, the key focuses of this build are going to be our fire rate, our gun damage, and our movement speed is sort of our main focuses for our stat allocations. So first we're going to go through some of the key synergies of the build, some of the required pieces to get the build online, and then we'll go through the rest of the gear and the skills. One of our main key synergies here that you'll see on a lot of Vex's stronger builds is the Teen Witch class mod combined with an amp energy shield. So the Teen Witch class mod essentially applies any lifesteal that Vex has to her shields whenever her health is full. And then whenever her shields are full, that lifesteal will actually apply over shields. And what we're going to do is combine this with an amp shield. This can be any amp shield. So the way amp works is that whenever you're at full shields, it will consume your next shot for a certain percentage, usually between 20 and, for example, this shield I have here is 28% of my shields are consumed for a large percent of gun damage, in this case 100% gun damage. So essentially the synergy, pretty straightforward. Whenever you shoot an amp shot, it will consume some shields, and then Teen Witch, the lifesteal that applies to shields, will just instantly fill that shield back up. And then your next shot after that will once again be another amp shot. It'll drain it, it'll get refilled by Teen Witch, so on and so forth. So you have constant amp shots going out, which is extremely strong. Amp on a shield, or for example on a rep kit, those are considered multiplicative, and those are huge bonuses. That's why you'll see a lot of Vex's non-sniper builds revolves around these two items, just because the synergy is just so strong, and the combination of the damage output and the survivability, really just an extremely strong combination that can be used in a number of different setups. But like I said, this one we want to focus on lightning, shock damage, just zapping everything around the battlefield, taking advantage of some movement speed bonuses, just really having fun. But for this build, we want to actually add another layer to that amp Teen Witch combo. What we're going to be doing is using the Oh My Got shock submachine gun. So essentially what this does, whenever your energy shield is active, you get a 50% damage increase on the submachine gun, and the gun will consume shields instead of ammo. However, when you have an overshield active, the energy shield itself does not deplete, so you basically just get 50% damage for free as long as you have an overshield active. And obviously with our Teen Witch class mod, we will be getting overshields. Even though the amp shots are eating into it, the overshield will still stack over the top, as you'll be able to see in the gameplay. So those are sort of the three main pieces to the build. So for our shield, like I mentioned, the most important thing here is just to have an amp shield. I'm using the Sparky shield, which it actually has some decent synergy with this build, and thematically sort of looks good with the build with the lightning chaining. The shock does not do a lot of damage, but essentially whenever our energy shield is not full, it will shock nearby enemies. Basically every time we proc our amp shot, you'll see a little shock will come out that blue line. And so this will be pretty much going on at all times. Like I said, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but free damage is free damage, and it looks really cool. Ideally, I would have an amp watts for dinner shield here. I have been farming for, pretty sure it's been about 2 weeks now I've been farming for this shield. I know that you can get an amp watts for dinner, and I just have not been able to. So we're using this for now. But like I said, any amp shield will do. If you can use a purple one, whatever you got, as long as it's an amp shield with the Teen Witch synergy, you'll be able to take advantage of that pretty much all the time, as long as you have enough lifesteal and outgoing damage. So the Oh My God drops from Moon Madden Callus. It was all the way up here in the Elpis Orbital Shatterfield. The Sparky Shield drops from Shadow Pelt. You can find in the Whistler's Maw Abandoned Auger Mine, and the Watts for Dinner drops from Primordial Guardian Origo, who is also in Terminus range right up here. This is also where the Bottled Lightning drops, so you can farm them both at the same time, as I have been doing. So I've gotten a pretty good Bottled Lightning. I would like one with a little more damage, but I am still looking for a better Watch for Dinner. And then for our Teen Witch class mod, that actually drops from Primordial Guardian Radix over in the Carcadia Burn Vault. So that is where you can find Teen Witch. And then for our heavy ordnance weapon, this is going to be our boss killer, the Bottled Lightning. I've been loving this thing. I was going to do a dedicated build around just heavy spam. I actually ended up sort of merging that build with this one. So it's a bit of a hybrid, which I'll talk about more when we get into the skill tree. You can go a few different directions with the build. What do you want to focus on more, whether it's, movement speed, damage, fire rate, just like overall quality of life. But so this is what we're going with. I mean, this spot's pretty flexible, but I used the Bottled Lightning here. We'll go over how to maximize the potential of this weapon using Vex's kit a little later in the video. One thing worth mentioning too is that the Bottled Lightning, and as well as any heavy ordnance, will also proc amp on your shields and will benefit from that increase in gun damage. That's why I like to use a heavy ordnance rather than a grenade, right? Whenever using an amp shield. So to round up the rest of the gear of the build, we have a Mile 1 enhancement. Basically just increases our status effects coming off of the Ohm I Got by 25%. Also has a 25% gun damage, which is multiplicative here, which is very nice, as well as SMG crit damage. So a pretty decent roll. Honestly, the enhancement doesn't do too much for the build. The most important part is that 25% gun damage. So even if you're not matching manufacturers here, I think that's perfectly fine as long as you have that gun damage. And for the rep kit, we're using the shiny war paint, which increases your fire rate and movement speed by 30% each, which are two of our main stats of this build. And I also have a roll that increases my movement speed by another 40%. So when you pop the rep kit, you are just zooming. It's a ton of fun. You kind of have to like slow down to actually shoot enemies a lot of the time, but it's a riot. Yeah, for this, I mean, you can go for enrage, you can go for fire rate, whatever you want. You can use triple bypass, whatever you really want here. The rep kit's pretty flexible, but I just think the fire rate and movement speed just play really well into this build. So for other weapons in the build, pretty flexible. I actually haven't even selected different guns for this build. I enjoy the Stray, so I have this on a lot. I think Katagawa's Revenge might be good here, just for some more shock, long range shock damage. But really, whatever you want to use here. I'm honestly not even switching weapons besides my Oh My God and the Bottled Lightning. So up to you. All right, now onto the skill tree. So like I mentioned earlier, there's a few different ways you can go here. I focus pretty hard into green tree. Just a lot of the benefits are kind of too strong for this build specifically to overlook, between the life steal and some max size increases, as well as our kill skill uptime. So we're starting with 2 points into guns and needles to get our rep kits back quickly. This will actually give us close to a 90% movement speed bonus whenever our rep kit's active. So we're going to want to have this up as often as possible. This kill skill will actually restore your rep kit while the rep kit's still active. So you won't be able to see it filling, but it will be filling in the background oftentimes. I find 2 points is usually enough if you're just running like a drill site or killing stuff. As soon as your rep kit timer runs out and you can actually see the cooldown starting on the side, it'll actually just instantly fill up if you've been getting kills or critting and proccing Mortal Terror. So this is really nice to have. You can just have full rep kit uptime. And then we put 3 more points into grave sights for crit hit damage and gun handling. You can put more here if you don't want to use the rep kit. Crit damage is very strong in the skill tree, but we're just taking enough to get to the next row. And then we are taking Fiendish Invigoration. We're putting 3 points here. Whenever Vex uses a rep kit, she gets another 18% movement speed and another 18% fire rate. So this just stacks with the 30% movement speed and 30% fire rate that comes on the shiny war paint. So it's just sort of a no-brainer, along with the additional 40% movement that we have on our shiny war paint roll. And we be zooming. And then we put 2 more points into grave implements. You can go 5 out of 5 here if you want to take some points out of Fiendish. This is a very strong kill skill for a lot of gun damage when you have this fully maxed out. It's like 60% at 3 stacks. If you have great power, you get up to 120%. But we are just sacrificing a little bit for a little more movement speed and fire rate here, as well as some other utility throughout the tree. Third row, we go 5 out of 5 for crit chance, so that our weapon has 15% crit chance against any part of enemy. So if you're not hitting the head, you're still having a decent chance of crit. And this will also give our Bottled Lightning some decent crit chance. That's much needed. Now down onto the middle row, we go with Drink Full. This will give us another 30% fire rate when fully stacked. This stacks up very quickly with the amount of gun damage instances we're doing, since we have such a high fire rate SMG. You're basically at 30% rate of fire at all times. Face Pocket, 2 out of 3. So this is taken for a very specific reason. This is to give our Bottled Lightning 1 extra shot in the magazine. So the roll that we have here has 3 in the mag. If you go to farm this gun, sometimes it'll drop with 2, sometimes it'll drop with 3. So if you want to use it in this situation, I would recommend looking for a 3 in the mag. So essentially, this magazine size increase actually applies to your heavy ordnance, which most magazine increases don't. None other ones that I've been able to find for Vex increase, like for example, gun mag size enhancements do not affect your ordnance, but this phase pocket will. So by going 2 out of 3, this is a 20% increase, and when her action skill is active, which we're assuming that it's going to be up 100% of the time when we're playing this build, the magazine increase will be 40%. So that's enough to push our ball of lightning from 3 shots in the magazine to 4 shots. So I'll just show that real quick. So if you see here, right now we are at 3 shots in the magazine, and then once I pop my action skill, this will go up to 4 shots. So that's just an extra free shot, and that is going to make it easier for us to sort of cycle infinite ammo with this gun, which we'll talk about here shortly. But if you have a bottle of lightning with 3 in the mag that you plan to use for this build, or any build, I would highly recommend doing this 2 out of 3. And then we put 5 points into Mortal Terror. It's just an incredibly strong skill, chance to activate kill skills while critting. This is great for bossing and also for mobbing, just for keeping our stacks from expiring. If we don't have constant ads to slay, sometimes they're spread out. This just requires much less effort to keep our kill skills up. So yeah, we take this pretty much whenever we can, honestly, for Vex. Moving over to the right side tree here, I went with Grave Vitality. You can go for Ars Arcana. This will buff your Blood is Power damage and also your Eldritch Blast damage, although Eldritch Blast is basically doing no damage in this build, but you can take that if you like. I just like the extra survivability, even though it's not really required, but you just need to pick one of these 2 just to get to the next row, which is very important. So we're taking 5 out of 5 Essence Leech. So Essence Leech will give us 20% lifesteal when we're in our action skill. This is very important for 2 reasons. One being we need high lifesteal in order to recharge our shields with the Teen Witch class mod. If we want to spam as many amp shots as possible, we need as high as lifesteal as we can get to keep that those shields topped off. And the second reason is to scale up our Blood is Power, which is an incredibly strong bonus kinetic damage instance with guns, which is based on 300% of your lifesteal. So we have 20% lifesteal here. That's a 60% bonus kinetic damage. And we have some other instances of lifesteal as well in the build, like through our firmware and through on Red Tree, which we'll get to in a second. And that will just scale Blood is Power even higher. Now I've heard there's some instances of lifesteal that don't apply, like I think Leech on rep kits does not actually scale up Blood is Power. I have not tested that for myself. I don't know if the firmware Leech counts and if Red Tree Leech counts as well, but I'm gonna assume it does, and if it doesn't, well, it's Leech, so we need it anyway to keep our shields up, so I'm not too worried about it. So that rounds out our green tree. Then we move on over to red tree. We take 3 points in Grave Sustenance, another very strong passive. This will make our Incarnate last for a very long time when we're mobbing and when we're bossing. Since we're taking Mortal Terror, the crits will extend the action skill, and you can have it up basically indefinitely as long as there's something to shoot at. We're taking 3 points in Hasty Fiends for additional movement speed and some damage reduction, just to continue to scale up our movement speed. And then 2 points into Enchantment, which is another 15% bonus kinetic damage. I just sort of took this because we had extra points, and bonus damage is just sort of its own multiplicative stat, but this build gets added onto Blood is Power. So 2 points here is pretty good. You can move this around if you'd like to. And then I take 1 point in Overprotective. This helps keep our Overshield up in case our Teen Witch class mod is having trouble proccing it for whatever reason, because it's important to keep an Overshield up so that Oh My God isn't draining energy shield on top of the amp shots. So I just take that 1 point there just for a little extra Overshield help. It's not required, but I like to take it there. And then it's worth noting our class mod gives us actually 3 very good stats for this build. Basically increases Vex's overshield capacity and duration, and also Vex gains 12% all damage dealt when she has an overshield, which is very nice. And just another reason we want to have our overshield up at all times. And then also Grave Thirst, which is a lifesteal kill skill, 3% per stack, up to 3 stacks, which is 9% total when fully stacked, which is most of the time we're mobbing, so it's just another 9% lifesteal to help with our build and to help scale Blood is Power. And then so for our action skill, we're taking Incarnate here. So I like to swap between 2 different augments for mobbing and bossing. The nice thing about augments is you can just swap them on the fly. You don't need to respec. So for mobbing, we take Energy Vampire. Essentially, Vex deals status effect damage to nearby enemies and also gains overshield for each enemy affected, which helps with our overshield uptime to keep Oh My God from draining our shields. And then every time we get a kill or proc a kill skill with Mortal Terror, we will grant a stack of Energy Vampire, which essentially increases our status effect damage by 10% per stack, and that stacks up to 5 stacks, so that's a free 50% status effect damage increase, which helps with all the shock status effects that we're putting out with this build. So that's a nice little mobbing tool. And then for bossing, we swap to Witchy Triggerfinger. So we combine this with Bottle Lightning if we're planning on farming bosses. So whenever you deal damage with Eldritch Blast, it fully refills the ammo of your current gun. Now this actually will full refill your heavy ordnance, which basically allows you to just run a heavy ordnance as your main weapon as long as you're constantly able to proc Witchy Triggerfinger and keep your incarnate up. And on top of that, each time you hit an enemy with Witchy Triggerfinger, it also gives you a stack of 15% gun damage, which stacks up to 3 times. So it's another basically free 45% gun damage. And that will persist even if incarnate ends for another 15 seconds. So it's a really strong bossing tool. You'll see me using the footage here. And yeah, it's easy enough to just swap between the two. If we're doing drill sites or story missions or whatever, we'll just go Energy Vampire. And then if we need to kill some bosses or whatever it may be, then we'll just swap over to Witchy Triggerfinger. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that there are some alternatives. So those are just some other ways you can go with the build. But for me, this has been just a solid all-rounder. Can just tackle anything and everything without having to make. The only modifications you make are just swapping Witchy Triggerfinger and Energy Vampire. So yeah, really comfy, really fun to play. Specializations, nothing too groundbreaking here. We do take Full Spectrum Arsenal to help buff up our Bottled Lightning damage, which allows ordnance damage to benefit from increase to gun damage. So our heavy ordnance, so our rocket launchers, railguns, machine guns, etc., they actually will double dip with gun damage when we take this passive skill, because gun damage increases just apply to heavy ordnance by default, and then this gives them another 50% of all our gun damage increases. So gun damage is valuable for heavy ordnance builds for this exact reason, because we get to double dip that gun damage. You take rid of this, just free gun damage. This is maxed out at most of the time since we have a high fire rate and we have a lot of gun damage instances hitting our targets. So this is stacked at 50 all the time, just another free 50% gun damage. Now with Caffeine, introduces our action skill cooldown whenever a rep kit is activated by 25%. Incarnate has almost a minute long cooldown, so I take this in pretty much all my Incarnate builds just to get back faster. And if you run something like triple bypass, you can pretty much just pop 3 rep kits and have it back almost immediately. So a very nice skill to have there. And then we do take Bullet Train as well, which synergizes nicely with our movement speed in this build. You can hip fire while sprinting, and you gain gun damage as well the faster they move. And so your gun damage does actually scale up the faster you move. It's not a huge increase. I've had trouble testing like the exact amount. Yeah, this is pretty funny. If you see, you can just sort of sprint, and as long as you don't let off the W key, you can just shoot while sprinting around. And yeah, so a lot of fun. Can be hard to hit stuff, especially when your movement speed's like full maxed out, but that's a great skill for our build. Bullet Train and really this give you gun damage, and as previously mentioned, or ordnance damage is double dipping with gun damage. So if I'm comparing gun damage to just normal damage, I'm taking gun damage pretty much every time, because most of our damage is, we have some status effect damage which would be increased by the damage dealt, but it's a pretty small amount compared to our outgoing gun damage. Either way, these are all additive, so it's, it is what it is. But so yeah, that pretty much rounds out the gear and skills. So now I'll just take this through a drill site, and we'll take it to do a quick boss kill as well, and then round out the video. Okay, so we're at the Lowering March drill site. I've been farming for a shiny Finity XXXL because that is my favorite gun for my favorite build at the moment. I do have a YouTube video up on that build. It's insane if you want to check it out. So it's worth noting that I am using Witchy Triggerfinger for this rather than Energy Vampire, mainly just to burn down the boss much quicker with just spam reloading our Bottled Lightning. Everything just dies instantly in here anyway, so don't feel like I need Energy Vampire, but if you want to run it, then it's up to you. So we'll start with a rep kit, and then we'll pop our action skill, and then we will start ramping up. Once you get a couple kills, your rate of fire and damage will start to ramp, making the amp chain, the sorry, the amp procs happen much quicker because your Teen Witch is loading quicker. You can kind of hear when an amp proc is happening. It's like a kind of like a sound. You kind of hear it's like that, like that's actually the amp taking place. I know, great sound effects, but yeah, that's how you kind of know it's proccing. And when you shoot a target, we'll do it on the boss for a little bit before I swap to my heavy, just so you can hear what it sounds like. Ads are pretty spread out, so sometimes I would try not to shoot your Oh My God until you're like locked on an enemy, because it'll just drain your shields without getting any lifesteal to top your shields back up. Just something to notice. Oh, and another thing as well, be careful. I think this gun has like some splash damage when you kill an enemy. So if an enemy's point blank, like you'll actually find yourself even downing yourself sometimes if you're like too close to an enemy. Well, let me just reset here while I'm yapping. So I would try to keep like a few feet distance from the enemies. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you what like an amp shot sounds like. So if you don't hear anything, then you hear like that. You hear the crazy ticks. Pretty much the only sound you can really hear. So that is what how you can tell like your amp's proccing and working. We actually didn't. I'm gonna probably swap to our heavy because my action skill right now, because I was yapping. But yeah, I mean everyone coming off is just getting chained. And that's that. So yeah, we actually didn't even use our heavy there, but we will show that rotation on a boss kill here in a second. But yeah, whole lot of nothing. I am also on the hunt for a max shield capacity shield for another build, which we aren't going to tease quite yet. I'm hoping gets buffed in the upcoming patch. I think it's supposed to drop maybe today or tomorrow. But yeah, I'll just a little teaser. Just keep an eye out for the highest shield capacity shield you can find. The highest I found so far is 30k. I've heard of people getting ones that go up to like 40. So yeah, the higher the better for this next build we got coming up. All right, and then for our boss kill, we're actually going to the Primordial Garden, Origo. That's how you say it, Origo. So this is where the Bottle Lightning drops, as well as the Wasp for Dinner, which I have also been farming for an Amp Wasp for Dinner. I feel like I've been farming for like since the game came out, basically, and just have not been able to drop it. That shield's great because you can roll it with Amp, as well as it comes with 40% bonus shock damage. It's bonus shock damage. I don't think it says it on the shield, but it is indeed bonus shock damage, which is incredibly strong, and you know, it just goes even better with the build. As you can see, everything's dying. All these different shield and armor health types does not even matter, thanks to our Blood is Power procs. I know some people are probably getting bored of kinetic Vex, but I don't know. To me, this is like a more fun way to use it. It's not like kinetic focus, like you're getting kinetic procs, but it's just sort of enhancing the build that we have here. So I don't know, plenty of fun. You know, you're just zooming around, hold W, tap everything. You can pop rep kits pretty much off cooldown because you're getting them back, and some of the add dense activities. And our action skill is going to run out because of the sort of downtime between these platforms. Even with it down, I mean, we're still. What enemy I see? I see over there. I mean, the damage is still good. We lose like a little bit of what I think maybe a little bit of life steal, and some other maybe a little bit of damage, but you know, build this perfectly fine without it. Pop a rep kit, bring our cooldown a little bit with our specialization. For our next action skill, we're only 10 seconds away now. I mean, everything's just dying anyway. I mean, this is UVH5, by the way. Yeah, doesn't feel like it, but it is. Our action skill back, so we will let that rip. We popped our rep kit too, so we are just zooming. And this gun's great for this zoomy build too, because sort of once you start shooting, kind of locks. Like the hitbox is it's kind of hard to explain. You'll get the hang of it once you start playing with it, but like, kind of locks on if you're. See how I'm not actually aiming at the guy? Once you aim, It sort of keeps that target. That guy just died before I can even show it. Oh, maybe it'll be a vial. Oh, perfect. So for also, I've noticed, I don't know if it's this gun specifically or shock or what, but they do really well against. Oh, I'll come back to that guy because. Get rid of that guy. But they seem to do well against some vial enemies. They just sort of like break the crystals well. You don't really have to aim at them. I kind of just spray center mass and it just breaks everything. So yeah, I've noticed that. It's been really nice. Like for vial bounty farming, this build's really good. This boss does fly around a little bit, so not the best boss to use the bottle lightning against with just how slow the projectile is. That would make it work. So we'll always do rep kip action skill. Have a rocket out for when he lands. We shoot 3 shots when we throw our thing. Never drop below 1 ammo or it will put your gun on cooldown. So just kind of keep your eye out. And he just dies. That's the power of bottle lightning with some kinetic bonus damage. And nothing from this guy either. Yeah, I didn't even really get to like talk through that kill because he just kind of dies so quickly. I mean, once again, this is UVH5, but you know, you'll notice like even with the bottle lightning, it's using the amp shot, which drops your shields, and then the Teen Witch class mod is instantly filling that shield back up. So then your next shot is once again amped. So you're just getting 100% multiplicative gun damage after every shot, which I actually haven't tested for ordnance, but I wonder if that also double dips, which would just be insane and probably why this gun is just melting. But yeah, incredibly strong combo, incredibly fun. Like I said, I was planning on doing a build just for bottle lightning. It's a little different than this, but not too much different. Now, if that's something you guys want to see, just let me know in the comments. We got a couple other ideas lined up. A couple builds I'm keeping in the back pocket for hopefully these buffs this week might make them even better. So I don't want to put them out before the buffs come out. I'd rather just wait and just see what happens and kind of go from there. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for today. Like I said, incredibly fun. You know, there's a few different ways to customize this build. You can go for more speed, for more mobbing clear, specking a little more boss damage. But I think this is a good all-around middle ground. Like I said, great quality of life, great, like, you just click and shoot, you just sprint around everywhere. You know, just rip your rep kit off cooldown. Like, don't really have to think too much, just kind of point and click and fly around everywhere and zap everybody. So, ton of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed as much as I have. And if there are any other like builds, I want to do a few more for Vex. Like anything you guys want to see that's not really out there, just let me know in the comments, and then you know we'll try to make it happen. So once again, as always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.